Hello, this is Mr. Russell, your AP Biology teacher, and today we're going to be finishing up our notes on eukaryotic cell components. First, we're going to look at the mitochondria. The mitochondria is nicknamed the powerhouse of the cell. It's a membrane-bound structure. This organelle is involved in making energy by performing the process of cellular respiration inside of it. This organelle has its own DNA, ribosomes, and enzymes, and it can reproduce by binary fission. It has a small room within a larger room appearance. We've got these folded inner membranes referred to as cristae. This folding helps to increase the surface area for being able to make energy. And if you remember about what binary fission is, which is just the reproduction of prokaryotic cells, and we said that mitochondria can do this. So according to science, we need to talk about the evolutionary significance of the mitochondria. These were once believed, or these are believed to have been purple bacteria. Remember, bacteria are prokaryotes, and they entered into a symbiotic relationship, which we'll talk about in a few minutes ago. They entered into a symbiotic relationship with the larger prokaryotes that could provide protection in return for extra energy from the smaller ones. So together they would have had an evolutionary advantage over bacteria. This advantage allowed them to survive and reproduce and eventually lead into eukaryotic cells. Now, chloroplasts are also membrane-bound structures. These are organelles that are the site of photosynthesis in plant and algae. So they are a type of plastid, and plastids are pigment containers. These contain the green pigment chlorophyll, phyll meaning pigment. So chloroplast has its own DNA, ribosomes, and enzymes, and also reproduces by binary fission. So very similar there in relationship there with that mitochondria, some similar things going on. Now, so it also has these smaller rooms within the larger room appearance. Well, inside the smaller room of the chloroplast, you have three different structures: thylakoids, grana, and stroma. In AP Biology, you're going to be asked a lot of times to compare or describe or discuss the structure and function of organisms or organelles or different parts that you may run across. So if we look at a thylakoid, it looks like a stack of green cookies. It's like a green cookie room. These are the individual green cookies or individual, let's say, green pennies. And in this case, these green cookies or thylakoids are the site of light reactions for photosynthesis. So when you look at the whole big stack of green cookies or the whole stack of thylakoids, the stack itself is called a grana. And it's surrounded by this mostly watery space called stroma. That this stroma is this watery space in between the thylakoids and the outer membrane. So here again, we look at the evolutionary significance of chloroplasts, and they were believed to have been a blue-green bacteria that entered into a symbiotic relationship for protection in return for energy as well. The symbiotic relationship, let's talk about that a little bit. The endosymbiont hypothesis was proposed by Lynn Margulis, I believe is how you pronounce her name, back in the 1960s. And this endosymbiont hypothesis, it tries to scientifically explain these relationships. It basically hypothesized that prokaryotes came to live together in a symbiotic relationship, the smaller living inside of the larger ones. And the reason the smaller ones lived inside the larger ones, according to this, is that they gained a survival advantage over the prokaryotes, and eventually they evolved into eukaryotes over many generations that spanned hundreds of thousands of years. So the smaller ones gained protection from the outside environment, and then the larger ones gained energy and faster motility or movement. They were able to move a whole lot faster. Now, if we start looking at today, this was back thousands of years ago where these bacteria started to move inside of the larger ones, and the larger ones accepted them in so that they could have this advantage. Well, it's thought that this is what they turned into, modern day animal and plant cells. Here you see the chloroplast, which would have been this bacteria resulting from that blue-green bacteria. And then on the left side, in the animals, you see the mitochondria, which would have been the purple bacteria that we talked about earlier. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about a cytoskeleton a little bit. We talk about the cytoskeleton. These are structures that help to support and protect the cell, much like your skeleton does for you. It also helps to keep inner organelles organized, much like your skeleton does for you. It helps in cell motility or cell organelle movement, much like your skeleton helps you move. So we look at this, the cytoskeleton is composed of various size protein fibers. You know, your skeleton itself is composed of different size bones, large bones, middle-sized bones. You've got these ligaments and tendons and small muscle fibers. Well, the cytoskeleton has these various protein fibers as well. Now, part of that is made up of microtubules. These microtubules are the largest structures inside the cytoskeleton. These are large hollow tubes, and they're composed of what's called tubulin protein. Their main function is to support or move the cell or organelle. So important structures made of microtubules within a cell would be things like these centrosomes or centrioles. These act as anchors during cell division. You've also got spindle fibers. These act as guides or tow ropes for chromosomes during cell division. You've also got things for cellular movement like cilia. And cilia, as you can see down there on the bottom, these help with cell movement. Cells usually have a lot, and they are small in length. So if you look down at the bottom, there's little hair-like structures on the cell itself. Lots of those. That's just helping to move that cell around. If you look at the top one there in the flagella, these are also for movement. Usually very few, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, very few, not hundreds or thousands, and they are very long in length. So let's talk about microfilaments. These are the smallest structures in the cytoskeleton, made up of solid rods and composed of actin and myosin. So if you think about actin and myosin, you've probably heard of that in your muscle cells there. Lots of those. They can be in these bundled sheaths as well. These provide a pulling force. Think about flexing your muscles. They're abundant in animal muscle cell tissues. And there you go. You can see the actin and myosin structures in there. If we look at intermediate filaments, these are medium-sized structures, inter meaning between, and these are permanent solid rods. They're mostly composed of keratin protein. They help to reinforce and brace the large microtubules within the cells. So if we look at our protective cell walls, these are kind of like weight-bearing structures, kind of like in the classroom, our walls here, or in your house. So the cell wall of plants are composed of cellulose primarily. If we look at this on a microscopic view, cell walls of a fungus composed of lots of carbohydrates called chitin. We also have something called an extracellular matrix, or ECM. This extracellular matrix is the outer protective skeleton of the cell plasma membrane in animal cells. Extra means outside, and matrix meaning skeleton. So it also functions in communication with other cells. Well, a cell is really just a sum of its parts. So it's the basic unit of life when all the parts work together to make life possible. So without all these different structures working together, then the cell's not going to function correctly. So this is the reason that we say a cell is the sum of its parts. Okay, this finishes up eukaryotic cell parts or components part 2, and we will continue next time.